Everyone dreams about living an uncommon life, but how we define that dream is very different for each of us. And for most, it's a lifelong pursuit. Welcome to the Uncommon Life Project podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living that life or enjoying the journey to get there. We're going to also give you some tools, tricks, and tips for starting or accelerating your own efforts to live an uncommon life, a life worth celebrating and savoring. Please welcome your hosts, Bryan Dewhurst and Phillip Ramsey.
Hello, everybody. I am your host, Phillip Ramsey.
And this is Bryan Dewhurst.
Thank you so much, Star, for that beautiful intro. We really appreciate that. Today, we have such a wonderful guest on the show. Nadine Hawbaker is with us. And funny story, I am sitting in her living room right now, and Bryan is in the office. So we have a little different kind of scenario for our folks, and I can't wait to just dive into all the wealth of information that Nadine has for us. So let's give her the quick bio. She has had many artists. She is a painter through and through, an artist extraordinaire. She has 12 of her paintings as a permanent display at the state capitol, and that she has done many different paintings for different companies around the Des Moines area, but that's not all.
That's not all. We have an international renowned artist with us today. She is featured in the World Food Prize and did several paintings and posters for that organization that are featured all over the world today.
And so welcome, Nadine Hawbaker.
It's good to be here with you.
I can't wait to jump right in. Okay, so let's start with, what is your earliest memory of thinking that you might want to learn more about painting and being an artist?
Well, my earliest memory is my father was a commercial artist and did quite a bit of artwork at home as well. So naturally, I paid a lot of attention to him and just got very interested in it and started doing it myself little by little.
When you were, so we need to probably mention this. You are how old?
75 years old.
75 years young.
Yikes.
Now, when you were in school, did they have a lot of outlets for you to paint and do that stuff?
No.
Really?
No. One thing I remember distinctly is I was in a high school class, art class, probably 12th grade, and we're cutting and pasting something kind of boring, I guess. And I looked across the room, and there's a girl standing at an easel painting. Something clicked in my brain. I knew that was for me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How old were you in that when you were?
Well, senior high.
Okay.
High school.
So high school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But it clicked in my brain,
That's amazing.
I think about that. I just got a picture of my son. He's in 4th grade, and he painted a picture in school. So I think it's a testament to what you're saying, how much things have changed. And I think they're probably trying to take it out of school now because of the budget shortfalls and all that. But yeah, definitely different.
So how do you scratch that itch after senior high? You see that, you see something you like.
Well, then I get married, I have children, and I was raising children first. But then when the children started school, all of them in school, then I knew I just needed to find the best instructor I could find. And I found a man who was trained in the academy method in Europe, rare bird in this part of the world. And so I thank my lucky stars for that. I studied with him off and on for maybe 5 or 6 years. They went to Mexico part of the year and came back. So anything I could get, I took. And of course, then self-study, self-research. Studied in oil first, a lot of different mediums, and settled on watercolor.
Wow. Okay, so that's a long time period from when you saw it, right? Like, you're thinking the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
From when you saw it to like, that's what I want to do, to where you actually put a brush to a paper.
Yes.
What was going on? I just got to get through life.
It's got to be
married.
Like 10, 15 years, right? From senior high school to...
Yeah, it was a while. Well, again, I have to say my father was commercially oriented, and we had it instilled in us that, fine art is a fun thing, but that really isn't much of a bring home the bacon.
Not a financial thing.
No, not a financial thing. So I just put myself on the back burner, I would say. I was always doing very creative things. I could not do that.
Sure.
But the painting just became something I was going to do. It was an inner fire. And I think if that's there, that's really not to be denied.
No, I agree. So who was the mentor that you studied under? What was his name?
His name is Dimitar Krustev from Bulgaria, and he had a lot of fine training. He was not particularly diplomatic, which many people found it offensive, and I just wanted to have somebody who was knowledgeable to be truthful with me. So I just thought it was great.
Where were you living? Where were you living at this point?
In Beaverdale.
And how did you get hooked up with the guy from?
They lived in Beaverdale.
Really?
I looked him up in the phone book. This is a serendipitous thing that happens throughout my life. And I just called him up one day and said, I really want to learn. Well, you got the right place.
Wow.
So from there on, I was on my way, studying, learning, painting at home after the kids went to bed, after my husband was in bed. Everybody, I'm up painting at night.
Were the first ones good? This is a quick question. This is a quick answer.
I'm glad you asked that, because so many people, and I taught later on, are so fearful of making a mistake or doing something that isn't acceptable. And I just never had that. I don't know. But I just know. Were they all good? Heavens no. You swim through the mud. I call it swimming through the mud for a long time, where the colors kind of all mushed together and it looks like a very unattractive brown a lot. So you learn, I mean, it's a long process. It's not a quick journey.
Sure. So you mentioned your father.
Yes.
That was instrumental in kind of getting you that way, but it might not be a way of life or something that you get paid for. So then you get married. And you have another now instrumental male figure in your life.
Yes.
What did he think about painting?
He loved what I did. He wanted me to do it. He encouraged me to do it. And at the time, we had small children, not a ton of money sitting around, and it was costly, but it was so rewarding. He encouraged me to take this trip to Mexico, which I did, oil painting up and down the hills of Mexico, getting bruised by my French easel, carting it around. But it was the greatest thing, because that was baptism by fire, because you would paint in the streets with people all around you. So you lost your inhibitions about being watched or seen or judged early on.
Wow.
I'm like just soaking it in. It's like hard to formulate the next question, because it's just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
I agree.
So you said something before we got started, Nadine, that I want to key in on, because it's kind of something, and your dog is with us too. So we're just, it's going to be one of those
She's here.
podcasts. So, but you made a comment, and it's short and it's powerful, and it sounds maybe a cliche, but I think it's so true, is you didn't get into painting to earn, but to learn. Can you shed light on that and that inner fire you talked about?
Surely. I'm just going to back up a little bit. We were raised in a family that did not necessarily prize having a lot of things. So that wasn't my impetus. But it was just a determination to learn about it, just a real fire to learn about art. And the beauty of it is there's no end, ever to the learning process. You can never know it. And that's what I find so exciting. So I just jumped in and started learning. Well, we did portraits from life a lot, oil paintings, quite a bit of life drawing. So.
And then, because we do touch on the 7 sources of residual income and money, your husband's income was really supporting the family, which allowed you to kind of take the time to really soak all this in and learn. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think without that, it would have been very difficult, as you can understand. People working another full-time job, people do it, but it takes a lot more determination. I still feel I would have found a way always to be creative, but it would have been on a lesser scale for sure.
What was the first painting that you sold?
That I
for
sold?
Like monetary value or something you traded?
It was probably a pet portrait. I've done a lot of pet portraiture over the years, and my first actual oil painting was bread going into a pizza oven, and I was in a class where everybody's doing anything else, and I'm painting food, which tells you something about me. But I don't remember the exact first painting I sold, but here and there I just started selling. And this gets to the point of marketing. I didn't set out to market myself. It just sort of happened. that's a hard thing to explain. But if you are outgoing and care about people and truly want to connect, you're connecting. It's a heart thing. If you're soul to soul, that will resonate without your making big efforts at marketing.
How did you land on watercolor? Why did you think that you were drawn to that?
Well, that's a good question. And I try to think back when I actually picked it up. I was not trained in watercolor. But oil painting to me I loved oil painting, but the turpentine and the cleaning the brushes and all that, it was hard to carry around and quickly do a painting, set up and tear down. So I started messing with watercolor. When I did, I knew that was my medium. There was no question. It's like, okay, I'm home. This is it. And I thought I was happy in oil. I did. And then, whoa, this is exciting. Watercolor does a lot of things without my help. I mean, it's wonderful. So that is my medium.
That's great.
What was it like? I'm just trying to I'm still kind of enthralled with how you got started. What did your friends, and I know your dad was obviously supportive, but what were your friends and neighbors when you started getting into this and you're going around to Mexico, you're doing this stuff? Because this was the 60s or 70s?
It was a ways back. I was I'm trying to remember, 30 some maybe when I went to Mexico, but maybe younger than that. It's kind of funny. I didn't talk about it a lot. I just was doing what I was doing, and I'd have some interest, and then somebody buy one off of me here and there. But again, I wasn't really into marketing. It just sort of snowballed as I kept working, and you're doing that, and then nobody made a big deal out of it, and I certainly didn't either. It was just something I was doing.
Very cool. When you look, we deal with a lot of people, Nadine, that they're working a job 9 to 5, and they're looking for this shift in the R word in retirement, and then their life is going to be different. You're obviously still painting, and we've talked to you about that. What has that been like to having pursued your passion for so long? And when you see in contrast that with so much of what society's doing, where do you what's your perspective on that? And
on how our society is going in regard?
Yeah, and just,
I think we're way out of balance. That's my personal feeling. Art and music, all these things contribute to our life certainly as much as any other aspect. And if you shortchange it, you're shortchanging quite a bit in the human psyche, I think.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think so many people want to do stuff, and it gets put on the back burner, and that fire starts to die out. What has kind of kept you going with painting?
I just think the sheer joy of it. There's nothing like it for me. To go out and paint plein air is thrilling. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a lifelong thing for me. It's who I am. It's not like I chose it. It's like, this is what I am. I can't really be anything else than this. And what I would like to share with people is that being fearful, being afraid of being judged, being worried that people won't like what you do is really a stumbling block, and it stops a lot of people from pursuing. And I think that's sad, because if you have it in you, do it. Mm-hmm. The worst that can happen is you may not achieve. I certainly haven't maybe achieved what I hope to, but hey, I'm still young, right?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that. What was your vision starting out as, because I think it's easy in business, right? We're going to go conquer, this industry, or build this, or have that building, or make this. What are the goals as an artist? What were those like for you?
Okay, this is going to be funny again, because I didn't really set goals. They kind of fell into my lap. Now that sounds very strange, but I just kind of eased into doing art shows, art fairs. I had enough paintings around. I started doing that. Well, then that started being successful. And then I'm out at a show, and I have a painting that I did of the Capitol statuary. And then Bankers Trust people contacted me and had a showing there. And it just kept snowballing and snowballing. They kind of fell into my lap, truly.
Talking about Dimitar.
Dimitar.
Mm-hmm. He kind of trained you, mentored you. And then when was that where you do you still communicate? Did you communicate throughout the years with him, or when did that kind of go on to the next?
Well, kind of off and on, but I think they spent more and more time in Mexico, and now I don't know where they are now. It's he and his wife. I don't know where they are now, but it was certainly a huge thing in my life, and I mean, so thankful for the training I received. Then it's just a lot of just research, study the best. Not, I'm not looking at painters like myself. I'm looking at the masters and studying from them. So
yeah. Let me ask you this. We talked a lot about in past shows about sacrifices. What have you had to sacrifice to do what you're passionate about today?
I don't feel like it's a sacrifice at all. I'm sure I could have earned a lot more money, but I'm fine. And the joy and the journey I've had has been absolutely priceless to me, and am having. So I don't think you can put a value on it. It's just been extraordinary. And I do not feel that I've sacrificed at all. I've just been blessed that I found it. That's why I encourage people, if you have a fire in you, to follow it. Because if you miss who you are and bringing that into being, you've missed a really important part of your life.
Yeah. I've shared with you, Nadine, my grandma, there's a painting in my parents' house. And I asked my folks one time, I was like, who painted that, or where did you get that? And my mom said, well, that was actually, my mom painted that. It was under she had a different pen name on the painting than her real name. And so I didn't know who it was, but
yeah.
She was divorced and was working 2 jobs and ultimately passed away. But that was the only painting that she ever had done. And it was just amazing. And I'm so fascinated with you and your story, I think, and too, of just that very thing of not having, she didn't have that spousal support, not only of the encouragement and the emotional encouragement, but just the financial support too.
Right.
To fan that flame that she had for art and creativity. And so it's just such a testament, I think, to what you're saying, of just not giving up on that.
And having support too is pretty important, because I think I might not have pursued it as much as I did without that support.
Mm-hmm.
Are your kids creative, or have they followed in?
They're all creative in their own ways. They don't paint, but the way I look at it, there is art in everything. There's art in what you are doing here. There's art in every aspect of life. So they're creative. Oh yes. And they value what I do. When I was making a downsizing move, they went, do not sell any of your paintings. Don't let any of those go. I may have, my closets are jammed with paintings and frames, but the clothes have to be elsewhere.
Yeah. That's not only have you been poured into by other people, you are now pouring into other people, right? And other children and teaching others. So talk to us about that in your life now, and how important is that?
Well, I'm just going to say I did teach over the years. I taught at the Des Moines Art Center and then at my home. And now I'm doing an after-school reading program with children. But this is an opportunity for me. When you're a child, having been there myself, you have no idea what gifts you have in you, and we all do. And if you give that idea to children early on and just lay it out, you have a lot of gifts you don't even know about, and get them excited about, well, try this, try that. No harm in trying. Maybe it's your thing, maybe it isn't. But if you don't try a lot of things, you may miss your thing that you really want to do. So I'm instilling this, I hope, with the children I'm working with now.
Definitely.
So cool.
What are you most excited about as a painter right now?
Plein air painting.
What? Come again?
Going out of doors with your paint and painting. And it doesn't matter what it is. Just go out and paint. And it's always a joy. So
yeah, just go Google Nadine Hawbaker and look at some of the watercolors that she's painting. They are amazing. Amazing. And so I think, just when I think about you, Nadine, I think about you're just so content about whatever you have. And I've always thought that about you. What's that? I want to talk about that logo that you have on your wall. And how did that play into the course of your whole life?
Well, it's a big, big part. As I'll go back to my father again.
But what's the saying, first of all?
Oh, the saying, it's a Swedish saying, and he's Swedish. That's where I was going. It's lagom är bäst. That's Swedish for enough is best, which is how our whole family was raised. In other words, my dad would say, why do you want to have a brand new car? If you drive an older car, you won't care if somebody bungs it up or bangs into it a little bit. Or why do you want to have more than anyone else? You don't have to worry about things if you don't have things people want. That stayed with all of us our whole lives long. And it's been a very important factor because we really, I would say, of my siblings and my children, they don't put a great store in what we have. It's more about what you're doing and how you are living your life.
There's a lot of wisdom in there.
Oh, we could just end it now and it'd be amazing. We got so many other questions though. I'm going to just go on. So when you talked about your pursuit of this art and painting, what were some surprises or things that you weren't expecting along the way?
You mean jobs that came my way?
Or yeah, we can talk about jobs. We can talk about anything.
Relationships
Well, let's see. Well, the food prize is huge. That one was dropped in my lap, actually. Someone called me one evening out of the blue and said, gee, would you be interested in doing this poster for the World Food Prize? Someone has had it and it hasn't gotten done, and they have a week left, and would I do that? And this sounds kind of hard in a week's time, and I don't even know what you want. And I almost turned it down. And then I talked to my son, and I said, gee, I just don't know, this a couple days and do this big painting. He says, well, why wouldn't you do it? Sometimes you need your children. And I thought, okay, I'm doing it. If I fall flat on my face, that'll just be all right. And I found out this, of course, was a worldwide organization. It's the top scientists in the world gather, and then one is given big recognition for their work, annually.
Oh, cool.
So meeting Dr. Borlaug, doing his 90th birthday painting and presenting it at the Ruan building. And doing then for many years after that, the food prize poster of the winners of the food prize. I did a painting for Governor Ray for his 75th birthday. And mind you, these were montages. I had never done one when they asked me to do this painting in maybe 4 days. And I'd never done one. This is, they give you several elements, many elements, and then you design the painting and get it together. And after I did the first painting for the food prize, I met a couple of the men in charge at a coffee shop, and they started visiting, and then I found out how big that organization is. They're like, well, I just got off the plane from London, and they're excited about it there. I thought, whoa, my knees kind of buckled as I walked away. But, it was just a great challenge. So that happened for me. I did the Dam to Dam race, had a poster. They were going to have a contest for the artists that got to do their poster. So I got to ride in the truck that precedes the runners and photograph all the way down. This was the year before the big deal I did.
Yeah, sure.
And that was exciting. I'm sitting in the back with some guy from Kenya, and we're talking about the runners, and he's telling me who's ahead and who's going to fade pretty fast. And that's pretty exciting. And then I did get to do a drawing for a man who was a navigator on the PBY plane in World War II. So he had me do a painting of the whole crew. It was a drawing, actually, and the plane behind them. And then he had many, many prints made for their family. They were very bonded by that World War II experience. So, and of course, along the way, then I read the biographies and stories about I learned all about the PBY plane. Just ask me and I know. And so I'm learning all along many things that I had no idea.
Sure.
Like
Talk to us about, because it seems like just when I Googled you, because we do that with all of our guests, and your painting of Barack Obama came up.
Yes.
And it seems like it's, pretty renowned in terms of presidential paintings and portraits. Can you talk about that?
Well, I was very passionate about supporting Barack Obama for president in 2008. So because I'm a painter, of course, he just had this wonderful, wonderful countenance that I wanted to capture in paint. So when went out to Adele. When he was campaigning, there were probably maybe only 100 people there, if that, at a farm in Adele. And I'm traveling around trying to get the best shot. I'm taking a bunch of pictures, and I'm kind of being conspicuous because I had Secret Service-y looking people following me around. So I did that, and then a lot of people liked it, so I gave those as gifts to people working on the campaign. And then actually out east, one of the volunteers sold it to go toward the campaign as well, which with my blessing, I was very happy for that. But it has a wonderful countenance. When I get moved by something, I just do it. You know.
She hasn't painted us yet, so
you haven't moved me yet, but you have a chance yet.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Wow.
So we were talking a few months ago, Nadine, and you said you were going on vacation. I think it was with your son, right?
Yes.
And then you were just going to take your stuff and just travel kind of around and just paint.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I just kind of want to, how did that go? And then do you do that often?
Well, when I'm with someone, of course, I don't paint as much as when I'm by myself, but do I paint outside often? I do. And yes, I made a trip over to the Mississippi this year with friends, and we were going to paint over there. It ended up being not good weather, but I do go out and paint every chance I get. And when, like when I go on vacation, my paints are easy to set up, do a painting, and then enjoy other people. I could just paint all day long, but then that's not fun for anyone else.
Let me ask you this, because I want to leave some of our listeners, maybe even artists out there. How would they sell and market, or how would you create a business of what you know now, because you kind of have, and what advice to them would you give?
I think the very bottom line is be authentic. Be passionate about what you're painting, and be sure to put your heart in it. I do have a Da Vinci quote in my bedroom which speaks to this, which if your spirit and your hand aren't one, then you're not creating art. So if you bear that in mind, and obviously we miss the mark a lot, but if you stay authentic and you're just truly meaning well, it seems to me that just people flock to you. I set out by the Mississippi River one time. It was sort of raining a little bit. My husband had gone somewhere else. And I set up with my little easel on down there, some drizzling rain on me. And this restaurant owner comes down the hill with a cup of coffee for me, some cream. Would you like sugar? And I mean, and talking with me. Well, then I get to know him, get to hear his history. He told us all about it. So all of these things, it's just important just to be there and be who you are. You will attract people, and I believe you will do well.
Yeah. That's like a good advice for any business, not just painters.
No, it's a universal thing.
Yeah.
It's you fellows have it as well. If you're genuine and you're truthful and you're meaning well, good things come your way.
What other advice do you have for our listeners? I don't know what else to just keep talking. Keep going.
I don't know. Just that's been it. But I can't count the number of times that serendipitous things have happened for me because I've been open to it. Do you have time for me to quickly tell a quick story?
Are you kidding me?
Okay. I was working down at the Artist Emporium, which is next to Java Joe's one time. And a woman walked in, and she was a Discovery toy saleswoman. And I'm reading a Tony Robbins book. He's an international motivational speaker.
Yeah, we know.
And she said, well, would you be interested in coming to this Discovery toy thing on Friday? And she says, my husband can't come, and we already paid for the ticket. And I said, well, wait, sure, why not? So I go to the Discovery Toy Convention without any bag or anything. I'm just there. And I'm not a big fan of motivational speakers generally. But he was, again, I believe he comes from such an authentic place, asking people essentially to bring forth what you have in you. Why are you letting it die inside? Get it out. So before we left the building that day, it was at the Civic Center, I believe, he said, bring to your mind something you really want to do. That was the day I said, I'm going to paint all of the statuary at the Des Moines Capitol. I had no backer. I had no buyer. I'm just going to do it. So I did 12 large pieces. And again, I've told the story. Then they ended up doing very well. But it was in me, obviously, and it was really rather subconscious. I wasn't even aware of it. So take every opportunity that comes your way. You never know what door you're closing if you don't.
Wow.
I really want to ask, what's the most expensive painting you ever sold? But I don't want to go there because I don't want to put you in the spot.
Well, I don't, 1,500.
Okay. That's not bad. What is the painting you're most proud of, would you say?
Well, I'm just not a proud person, just let's say that. But one that just blew me away is when I went to see Memoirs of a Geisha, the movie. I was so moved by the movie. I came home and this painting just spilled out. It wasn't an actual scene in the movie, but it just came out. And I entered it in a couple shows, and I thought, well, they're going to think, what does she know about Japan? She probably hasn't been there. Why did she pick this? Well, it actually won a couple of very big prizes because it's authentic. Again, it was my feeling about the women and the oppression that they were dealing with.
That's amazing. What do you have?
Cool.
What do you have, Bryan, over there?
Well, the other day was is it National Women's Day, I believe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so what you kind of mentioned it earlier, but I'd like to kind of push it on it. Who are the people that have inspired you, or when you look at other artists, who are you following or keeping track of?
Well, it's not current people. It's people in the past. John Singer Sargent, my favorite artist. The old masters.
Sure.
When you go to the big museums and you see paintings, which I have in books, and you see them in person, your jaw drops to the floor and you try to pick it up slowly. But I mean, it's that moving. And look at the gift they gave to the world. And if you are fearful and you don't want to try and you're worried that people, that's what I ran into the most with, generally with students. It's just, they want to produce a good painting, don't care how they get there or what it has in it. And it's really a backward approach in my mind. I think we need to encourage, go for things, try it, fall on your face,
You're going to learn something.
You will learn something. Yeah.
Priceless. Wow. If I could sum up this whole thing, it'd be genuine, be authentic, and enough is best. That'd be pretty good.
And
Very
fan the
good.
flame.
Fan the flame.
Fan the flame.
Get it, Bryan.
Ooh, there's a good one.
Bryan's on point today. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I do. I think I've always resonated with you, Nadine. I even say sometimes more to Phillip just because of that, kind of that humility or whatever. But, I think what we do is financial art, and I've always viewed it that way. And,
yes,
trying to get people to tell their story of what they really want, what is life really about to them, and then meeting them in that vein, with their numbers and all that. And so I've always just, been drawn to the creative side. And I think naturally I've been kind of drawn to you and your story and just what I've gone through with my own grandma. And so,
sure.
It's just, thank you so much for the time today and just, sharing the wisdom in your heart and your experiences. It's just beautiful.
Nadine, how does our listeners find out more about you?
Well,
do you have a Facebook page?
I do not. I'm so low tech. I have a Facebook page. I'm sorry. I just don't have a web page, but I am on Facebook.
Okay. So you can reach out to Nadine on Facebook?
Reach out and say hello. Yes. May I interject one more thing?
Yes.
I was asked to speak at DMAC a few years back, and they brought in well-known speakers, and then they asked local people like myself to come and speak to their students because they had a big concern that young people today are not thinking about what makes them tick and what they might bring to the world, that they're basically just thinking, and understandably so, but how can I make money and how much can I make and how do I get there? And really we're doing a disservice to our young people by not addressing, well, to all of us really, by not trying to understand who we are, because we all have gifts to bring to the table.
Totally agree.
Definitely. It was interesting. Even, my son, I saw his painting at school at parent-teacher conferences, and he said it wasn't done. And he, not to say he was ashamed of it, but there was that fear, I think, and intimidation as a young person of like, could it be better? Or what do people think? And I was just like, to me as his father, it was like one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yes.
But I definitely think there is that that pressure now on our children, and especially with social media, of the comparison and
there is.
Keeping up with all that. So very true.
Also, I spent I had a booth at the fair in the cultural building one year, and the best thing I got to do was, I demoed every few hours, and I would just ask someone to come up and start painting on my painting. Well, here's the difference. The parent would just be horrified when I'd say to the child, well, yes, come my way. Just pick up a brush. And, oh my goodness. Well, children are so, if they're not being oppressed by, mom or dad like we do, we're worried for them. And, this one little boy came up and just put a big red splash on my painting. Well, okay, I'll incorporate it. Probably made it better. And and if we can encourage that in children, which I'm trying to do with the children I'm working with, is just be bold. Oh, that was my favorite quote for students was Goethe. It's the one, and I'm not going to do it verbatim, but it's whatever you can dream or think you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. I believe that to my core.
I think too, what a testament, to leave our listeners with, just come up and letting people paint on your picture. And I think that's a symbolic, statement about our life, right?
Yes.
Letting people just paint in our lives and being open to, those people you haven't even met yet, or just the gifts and talents of other people. That's
exactly it. And wanting to know about them and knowing that you're interested in them and where they are. Like I say, you'll draw people like a magnet if you do that, because you're coming from an authentic place. And I might interject one other thing. I had a student years ago who was a professor at Iowa State University, and he said he really wanted to take lessons from me. And I said, I had no training in teaching. I backdoored into that one too. And I said, well, what is the subject you teach? And he said, I teach the history and philosophy of teaching.
Wow.
So, dear. But he was quite happy. So,
Nadine, I can't thank you enough for your time and expertise, and it really is wisdom. So
pure.
I hope everyone got as much out of it as I know Bryan and I did. If you liked it, guys, please subscribe to our, obviously, podcast. You've been listening to the Uncommon Life Project with Nadine Hawbaker, Bryan Dewhurst, and Phillip Ramsey. Please reach out to us if you have any questions, and we'll go from there.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, Nadine.
That's all for this episode of the Uncommon Life Project, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.